What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another TheeSportsScoop video. It's been quite a while. We've been doing a lot of podcasts, but it's finally summer, so we're going to be getting some videos out to you. Breaking news. It's been not been quiet, but obviously draft is over. The main part of the offseason is over in terms of moves in the NFL, and now we're getting into training camp, and some news has broke about former number one overall pick Baker Mayfield, who's currently still on the Browns. Obviously, they traded for Deshaun Watson, signifying that Baker Mayfield will no longer be the starting quarterback. And obviously, he has not shown up to camps. We know that there has been a trade that has been hoping to happen, but the whole thing that it's been is really, where will he go? There hasn't been a lot of interest in Baker Mayfield, at least, and we really haven't seen significant talks start to develop. But that all changed today as the Carolina Panthers now feel a sense of urgency to trade for Baker Mayfield. I really just think it's definitely some crazy news, but I'm here with my host, Charlie Nidell. Charlie, how do you feel about this deal kind of before we break into it or we get into it?
So I think it's a really interesting deal. I think the Panthers will be benefiting a lot from this deal because, Baker Mayfield's definitely a step up from any quarterback they've got in their locker room right now. We've seen Baker, what he can do. His first season with the Browns was incredible. He brought them from, I believe, 1-15 to 8. So it was around those numbers. And I think there's a tie in there somewhere. But we've seen what he can do with a not great roster, and that the Browns were okay when Baker joined. Now they're a better roster, but I think this would be great for the Panthers because Baker, he can do a lot of good things. He's a very talented player. That's why he was taken at number one, but he has dropped off in the last couple of seasons for the Browns. I have some questions for the Browns, exactly what they're doing, because obviously with Deshaun Watson, Watson's a better quarterback than Baker, pretty much any way you look at it. But if Watson's not playing, then now Watson's not a better quarterback than Baker. And we don't know how much Deshaun Watson's going to play this year. And Baker Mayfield's a great quarterback to have while you're waiting for him.
Yeah. And I think, Charlie, kind of the ultimate question, obviously, here, Jonathan Jones is the man who reported it, saying there's an urgency on Carolina's side to execute the deal, which is definitely something I would be confused by, because I think, you look at that quarterback room, we have Darnold, who we both think isn't going to be any kind of star quarterback, but there's always that upside. And then you have PJ Walker, who showed at times he can definitely produce. We obviously know Surge, other hosts, really liked him. I believe it was 2 years ago. And then there's obviously the rookie they drafted, Matt Corral of Ole Miss, who I think can be a franchise quarterback. I think can definitely be a very good quarterback. Obviously was one of the guys in this class where, we saw, besides Kenny Pickett, a lot of these guys fall. They got him in the third round. I do think Matt Corral 100% could be a starting quarterback. I think you kind of look at that class and he could be a guy who goes in, and like Matt Corral could definitely be. He was one of the most pro-ready guys, I would think, coming out of the class. It was definitely overall, besides maybe Malik Willis, who I think you even argue was pro-ready. But I think a lot of those quarterbacks were pro-ready. I think Matt Corral was definitely one of them in terms of being polished. So the whole thing for me is PJ Walker, Matt Corral not enough competition for Darnold? And then my other question would be, why is there really that? I know there's a separation in terms of talent between Baker and Darnold, but really, how many more wins will having Baker really, put you in? Because we saw him with the Browns. They had a very, very good team. Yes, he brought them to the AFC Championship 2 years ago, but last year he couldn't produce, and obviously the injury, the torn labrum. I know. And I've been a guy who've said, and we talked about in our last podcast, like I do think Baker Mayfield. We're doing tiers of quarterbacks. I think he's a guy who you could argue is a franchise quarterback, because we've seen he can win games and we've seen he can play in a tough division. But the thing for me is, he goes to Carolina. It's not as great of a team. I do still think, you kind of look at comparing him to the Browns offense, dynamic running back, good receiver, offensive line definitely is a little bit of a grade down, but I do think the Panthers offensive line isn't horrible. And then defensively, I say that's where the biggest separation is. I think the Panthers are a step down from what the Browns have, but I do still think they have a pretty good defense. You kind of look at the young corners they have. That secondary could be fantastic this year. But again, it's definitely, I wouldn't say it's surprising, but it's definitely at an awkward time. But then you kind of look at, they want him to get into minicamp and get reps. But it's definitely an interesting deal.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the only thing that's left to decide is how much money each teams are paying. I know Baker, obviously, when taking a number one overall pick, was given a big contract. So it's, I think the only thing the teams are deciding between, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I see on CBS, the
Mm-hmm.
only issue is Mayfield's salary and how little little the Browns are paying and how little the Panthers are paying.
Right.
Because I agree, it doesn't make a lot of sense for the Panthers to pick up a monster salary from Baker
Mhm.
if they've got Matt Corral who's just waiting to play. And I think that Matt Corral, without Baker in this team, takes over the Panthers when they're, 2-6. Because
Yeah.
odds are the Panthers aren't going to be a great team this season because it's the Panthers. They don't have that many pieces that they can really build the playoff push around. Now, with a weak NFC, I could see it happening, but I don't think it will. I think the Panthers are probably, I mean, we won't go too in depth about this. We'll see a Buster Boom at some point, but I think the Panthers are probably no more than around a 6 or 7 win
Yeah.
team, which is just not quality enough for the playoffs. And I think that with Baker Mayfield, I agree with you. I don't know how much that changes.
Yeah.
I don't see Baker coming into a Panthers offense, which has its players, it has its moments, and just adding 4 wins to it. Maybe he adds 1 or 2, but do you even want those 1 or 2 wins when you could just have a high draft pick next year?
Yeah.
Not saying the Panthers should tank, but I think Matt Corral might be the best option of those three
Oh
of
yeah.
Baker, Sam Darnold, and Matt Corral. I might take Matt Corral, maybe not out the gates of week 1, but if I'm picking a guy for next season, it's Matt Corral, and I
Yeah.
think you got to give Matt Corral as much game time as you can give him. And if they're trading for Baker Mayfield, that means Matt Corral's not playing this season.
And that's my whole thing. I mean, Charlie, I don't know about you. I would honestly, if I'm the Panthers, I think Matt Corral's the best option out the gate, like week 1 starter. I think Matt Corral's the best option. Again, we'll see rookie training. I just think you put Sam Darnold in, and again, I'm not an NFL coach. I'm not a franchise. Like I don't know, really how much Sam Darnold can potentially flourish, but it's just been too many years where he just hasn't been good. And he's been up and down and definitely has good games. And I think Charlie was definitely surprising because last year Darnold was playing very well. The Panthers started the season off hot and then they just weren't good. And I think, again, it's not fully contributed to Darnold, but I think Matt Corral, you put him in there. I think this is my whole thing. If they had drafted Malik Willis, I'd be like, okay, yeah, maybe let him sit. I think Matt Corral can rival these quarterbacks to be a starting guy. I think in minicamp they'll see that. And again, you kind of look at attributes. Matt Corral, Sam Darnold. I believe Darnold's taller, but not by much. Matt Corral's 6'2", 6'3". Darnold, I don't think is much more than that. I don't think Darnold's 6'4". I think he's 6'3" or so.
Darnold is 6'3".
Yeah, and I think Matt Corral, you look at arm talent, you look at accuracy, I would say it's pretty comparable. I do think Darnold at moments has shown flashes of kind of being able to throw those awkward sidearm passes. But again, in no consistency. So the whole thing with Baker is interesting. Do I think it would be a bad idea? Again, and Charlie will get into this next, kind of what we would look at a trade package. Again, it's not going to be some huge thing, and that salary obviously is important. That's a quarterback room where I think you have 4 guys who have shown they can at least start. Like I think PJ Walker, guy we haven't talked about. I think PJ Walker has gone in and won games, and maybe not won games, but he has done. He hasn't been completely awful. So I think there's having 4 guys there, and also how many teams have 4 quarterbacks on their roster? Like one of those guys will have to be released. And again, unfortunately, it'll probably be PJ Walker because they're not going to release their
Yeah.
rookie. But Charlie, we'll get into it, kind of end it off. What do you think would be a potential trade here for the Carolina Panthers to acquire Baker Mayfield?
See, I don't really know because I think that the Panthers won't be willing to give up too much because they're taking on his salary, which is not going to be some small figure.
Mm,
And they're, kind of replacing their, I guess Macro was a 3rd round pick.
right.
And they're replacing their rookie quarterback, which would be a bit surprising to me. I think they're saying that they think they can make the playoffs this year with Baker, which I don't really know about that. So they might be willing to give up a little bit more because of that. But I think all in all, this won't be a massive deal. It's not going to be even as big as the Carson Wentz deal we saw
Mm.
months ago. And I mean, Wentz was 2 second-round picks, I think.
Yeah, it's not going to be
So
near that. I mean, no way
it's
it'll be
not even
near
going to be.
that.
It's not even going to come close. Which I find kind of surprising that Carson Wentz was valued that
Yeah,
high
right.
for starters. But I think Baker, I mean, at most, they're giving up like a third round pick
Even
at
a
most.
third, I would think, is a lot. I would say 4. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if this is a 6th, 7th round kind of deal.
Yeah, I wouldn't either.
So
But I
that's,
think that the
yeah,
Browns might be willing to part ways easily. But at the same time, with Deshaun Watson not
yeah,
likely to play out
yeah.
week
And we,
1, I just don't know. Like, I don't know what they'll be going with for their starter in week 1. I don't know who else the Browns have on their roster.
yeah.
I do not know. I mean, that's stuff I could look
Yeah, Charlie, you're right.
into,
I didn't
but
even think we didn't even think about that. Like,
but
Deshaun
Sam
Watson
Darnold
most
started
likely
out.
won't be playing.
Yeah,
So if I'm right.
yeah.
So if I'm
Deshaun
the
Watson likely not playing. It's
yeah,
hard.
but I think for Baker, it's that relationship's broken. Even if they were like, yeah, you'll be the starting guy, I think he's like, well, you replace me. And the only reason you're saying to me now that I'm starting is because the guy who you wanted to start is in legal trouble. I don't think Deshaun Watson will play, but if I'm Baker now, that relationship is completely severed. And I think he's looking to move on. He's not going to the training camp. And again, this is what you see a lot of NFL media that's like, you should stay on the Browns. You'll probably get the playing time. Like that's why I think the Browns have been holding on to Baker, but this is the best deal they're going to get. This is the only really, at least from what I know, deal on the table for the Browns from the Panthers. So I don't think they're going to be picky in terms of what they get in return. So I would assume it'll be no more than a fourth, and I will be very surprised even if it's a fourth. I think it'll be fifth, sixth, seventh in that range in terms of pick trading. And again, I don't think there'll be any players traded. I would assume it would only be Baker. But yeah, I mean, Charlie, it's a really good point to even talk about that
So
as the whole Deshaun Watson situation, because that throws another wrench into the mix.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
but
mean, to be fair, the Browns do have Jacoby Brissett rostered,
right, forgot about right.
so
They have something.
it's not a
Case
terrible
Keenum, is he
backup
still?
option. But
Yeah.
no, Case Keenum's not. It looks like Watson, Mayfield, Brissett, and Josh Dobbs.
Oh, Josh Dobbs. Oh, wow, Josh Dobbs going from the Steelers.
But you know,
Yeah. All right.
nothing big.
Well, nothing like a classic old June rumor from the NFL, but let us know what you guys think down below. If you're a Panthers fan, Browns fan, what do you think the value for Baker Mayfield should be? As always, we respond to all comments. Make sure you guys are following us on TikTok, Instagram, and subscribe. Obviously, a ton more videos are coming out. As Charlie, you might have heard him say, if you guys have been fans of the channel, our Buster Boom series is right around the corner. Videos will start to be coming out. So we preview each team for the 2022-23 NFL season, going over key players, key losses, key additions, kind of obviously giving a preview for them going into next season. So those videos will start to come out. So make sure you guys subscribe. Stay tuned for that. This is the year we hope we'll do all 32 teams, but make sure you guys comment down below if you want us to do any of your favorite teams. Thank you so much for watching. Kean McDermott, Charlie Nidell. Let us know what you think about Baker Mayfield. See you next time.